penalty to serve tomorrow and has crashed already this weekend. It's not been the best 7 days for the number 9. Mario Aggi for Honda Team Asia, along with his teammate Yuki Kuni, Darren Binder for Grassini at their home Grand Prix. Colin Vire, who crashed on his first time lap of the weekend yesterday morning, which left him 26th in the practice time sheets. Unai Radre for the Fritza MSI squad. Our 2 wildcards this weekend, Alberto Ferrandez and Alberto Sura, who are frontrunners currently in the European Moto2 Championship. They complete your Q1 lineup. A Q1 session, which in terms of the World Championship feels like quite a crucial 15 minutes. Manu Gonzalez, your World Championship leader, and Diogo Moreira are automatically through to qualifying 2. And Canet, as we talk to you right now, is not an important Q1 ahead for the Spaniard.
Yeah, massive 15 minutes coming up for Aaron Canet. 38 points back in the championship fight of Manu Gonzalez after some really patchy form. 16 points Canet has scored over the last 4 races from a possible 100. And yeah, he is very much on the back foot in this title fight. So big session coming up for him. He needs to get through this and get himself on the first 2 rows of the grid. We haven't seen too much from him so far this weekend. Unless there's a more tangible excuse for Colin Vire. He missed the majority of FP1 yesterday morning after suffering a fast old crash down at turn number 12 on his first flying lap, and that rode off his machine. It meant that he had to watch the rest of the session from the sidelines. You saw just under his eye there a little bit of damage, and I think that was caused by his roll through the gravel. His visor came off his helmet, some gravel was kicked up, and he has a pretty ugly looking wound on his arm as well, but he's been fast fit for the rest of this weekend. Made a bit of a comeback in FP2 this morning, so I expect Colin to be fighting for the top 4 positions in this session, and I expect this rider to be fighting up there as well. Dani Munoz is the 15th rider to have stood on the podium in Moto2 this year. It has been an incredible season for variety in the intermediate category. Munoz 3rd place at home in Barcelona as he stands in for the Nissanju was absolutely breathtaking. Still less than 20 years old is young Danny. He's set for a move to a permanent World Championship seat next year. This weekend hasn't quite gone as comfortably as last weekend did on home soil. Like Vare gunning for a spot in the top 4 in the session.
It's a circuit that Munoz does know. He did ride here in the Moto2 World Championship last season as a replacement. He took part in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, and he did start the European Moto2 season last year with a round here at Misano. Perhaps not as familiar nor as strong around this circuit as he actively is at the circuit of Barcelona, Catalunya. But still, he's made his point in many respects already as a substitute over Abdul KTMIO to secure a place on the grid for next season. As we look at 2 of our 3 American racing entrants here this weekend. In terms of their squad, all 3 in this session. Joe Roberts on the number 16 going through the frame first, followed by Alberto Sura. It's a part of their European Moto2 lineup, and Marcos Ramirez. Ramirez 20th yesterday, Roberts 21st, Sura 29th after a crash in free practice 1. Ramirez himself also had a few excursions over the course of yesterday, so a crucial 15 minutes if the American racing squad are going to turn their fortunes around.
As the one for Roberts, he was saying that Austria is just a circuit that he really doesn't like, doesn't suit his riding style at all. He hated Balaton Park in Hungary, could not get on with the track whatsoever, and his form in Barcelona in recent years has been quite mixed. It's either been really good or just a bit anonymous. Even last year when he was in that sort of purple patch up there fighting for the championship, he didn't have a great race weekend in Barcelona, and it was the case once again last weekend when he was 12th, came through from 18th on the grid. I'm saying this weekend it's just not quite been coming together for him either, and had a bit of a loss to explain what exactly the cause is. I caught up with Joe earlier today and he said just haven't quite evolved the bike setting from that decent period we had just before the summer break, which resulted in a victory in Brno. He was keeping very calm. He was saying if this was in previous years I would be maybe getting a little hot under the collar and a bit emotional, but know that the potential is there and things will come good. Just whether it's the case this weekend still has a bit of a question mark hanging over it. But Roberts was on the front row here in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix a year ago, so he does have recent form at this venue. Another name to watch out in this session.
Of course, both of the American racing riders are staying where they are for next season. Here's Aaron Canet, who most certainly isn't. He's on the move to the Mark VDS team to jump on a Boscoscuro for next season. Right on board with the 44. 38 points adrift now of Manuel Gonzalez in the World Championship, and it has been a bit of a slump in recent rounds for Canet. 5 without a podium for him now. In fact, 5 without a top 5. His best result since that second place at Assen was a 6th in Hungary. Of course, that was a weekend that started with Canet in qualifying 1. Just the explosive pace that we saw from Canet around this part of last season just doesn't appear to be resurfacing, does it? Can't really say out any Grand Prix weekend so far this year that Canet has at any stage looked like the undisputed top dog, even allowing for his victory in Qatar. If he has any desires of closing in that World Championship deficit, he needs to start by getting himself in the top 4 in this session.
Yeah, we know that he is a tough nut, Canet, but he was wearing a neck brace after his fast crash at turn 7 out of the Grand Prix last Sunday. Whether those injuries maybe just playing a bit of a role in his slightly underwhelming weekend today. I think we can pass it on to Elliot, who might have an update on this matter.
Yeah, no, just a quick update regarding Canet. Basically, when he went out, I'm pretty sure he's on at least a used rear tyre. It didn't look brand new, so just watch out for that one. I'm trying to get a chat with Bobby Locatelli, the team manager at Fantic, but understandably, he wasn't really up for speaking. Tensions quite high. Obviously, a massive session for Canet to try and get through, but do watch out for Canet in this opening stint before he comes back into pit lane. I'm pretty sure he's on a used rear tyre at least.
Well, you better hope so, because he's currently in 7th place. That would understand or explain a lot of that. Thanks for that information, Elliot. 35.791 for Aaron Canet on his first lap of this session, which is half second slower than what he did in practice yesterday, although he did pick up some pace earlier on today in free practice too, did the Fantic rider. Canet was able to find the 1:35.024, which would be much more in line with the kind of potential he's had so far. Arbolino is 34.9, which is half second clear of the field, much more in line with the kind of pace we're expecting in this session.
Yeah, Pirelli have brought a super soft rear tyre here this weekend. You wonder whether Canet is just trying to manage his rear tyres, knowing that he might run the super soft in tomorrow's race, and he'll obviously need another one for Q2, which is coming up. He'll hopefully be qualifying from that. That was a big old moment there for Alberto Ferrandez. They're coming through Carboni on the exit on the curbs. Looked like as though he was out of the seat. Thankfully managed to keep it rubber side down. The number 93 on the orange bike there, 4th in your shot, just in the background, as we run with Ayumu Sasaki, who's a decent lap time here. Tony Arbolino was certainly set a fairly high bar with that lap time in the 34s.
35.0 for Sasaki then. He takes 2nd place. Ayumu Sasaki's on a really good qualifying run. Top 10 qualifying in each of the last 2. Unfortunately for him, hasn't converted either of those into points. Certainly not his fault last time out when he was taken out on the very first lap. Danny Munoz was the rider that he held responsible for that. For the field in this session by going about his recovery in a pretty mature fashion.
Yeah, it was this Munoz, Alex Scridge on fast lap times, and you have to imagine Aaron Canet is going to make a big old jump in the final 8 minutes. Hopefully, would sit in a new super soft Pirelli rear.
It's a bold strategy, that, because all it takes is for yellow flags to come out later in the session or get caught with traffic on his second run. You'd have perhaps expected them to go the other way and perhaps put the new tyre in first, get a lap time on the board that you know will get you into Q2, and then you park it. You don't park it until you've got the job done. So perhaps they brought a little bit of pressure on themselves there down at the Fantic squad, but Canet doesn't seem as if he's too perturbed, watching on as he sees his name tumble down the order.
Yes, fastest time of the weekend was in FP2 earlier today when he did a 35 flat, and Marcus Ramirez has just gone 4th with a 35 flat. So it's by no means a given that Aaron Canet will be able to just pull out a lap in the 34s in this session, which would surely guarantee him a spot in Q2. It's been another one of those strange, anonymous weekends where it's so difficult to read what is going on with number 44. It's saying it all weekend. I've been saying it the last couple of weekends. This is really not championship form that Canet is in.
At the moment, it feels as if he's the urge favourite of the three, even if he has been second in the weekend for quite some time now. Alex fires into life. He goes Aaron Canet. New tyres fitted. Really no option at this stage for Canet. Now's not the time for trying to play any long-term games and save for the Grand Prix. New tyres no use to you if you're starting on the 7th or 8th row of the grid. As Neil rightly mentions, this is no walk in the park in Misano for Aaron Canet here. Still attempt of a second covers the top four. Arbolino via Sasaki Ramirez. A quarter of a second then back to Estridge, who's fit on the forward machine. Munoz sixth on a 35.3. Ortola 2/10 further back in 7th. Binder, Roberts all on 35.5s. Surra is ahead of Canet on a 35.6. Canet currently 11th. If you're wondering, that would be 25th on the grid tomorrow if he doesn't improve on that. Angie 12th, Navarro Oradre and the second of our wild cards, who Niels Todd's having a bit of a wild ride through Corone. That is Alberto Ferrandez. As many viewing this as a bit of a dress rehearsal for a potential Grand Prix regular appearance next season. Ferrandez perhaps not going the best way about that with the crash yesterday in practice, although for someone who's already been impressing in the Moto2 European Championship, we are still talking about an 18-year-old Ferrandez that he celebrated his 18th birthday a couple of weeks ago.
Danny Munoz just gets a bit of a debrief with Nicholas Ayo. Great session for him so far, currently in 6th. He'll need to muster something up in these final minutes. You can see Joe Roberts, who is in deep discussion with his American racing crew. The iPad probably looking at one or two areas that need to be improved.
How do we find half a second? I think would have been the conversation there, because he's currently on 35.557. It's, well, you'd imagine, given what we've seen already so far, you're going to need a 34 to get through the Q2 from here.
Yeah, exceptionally tight at the top of this session. Using him as a reference just up ahead. See the way he was down on the brakes into turn 4, that he is fully committed to this lap time. I say it's been a weird weekend. Look at this from Canet in sector number 1. This would be so like him to absolutely ace this session and then go on and qualify in the front row in Q2. But very promising stuff. And again, like we saw in Hungary, nowhere in FP2, outside the top 10 and pretty anonymous, and then put a late banker in at the end of FP2 as if to just to remind himself that I can still do this.
Back Aaron Canet into a corner, and generally good things happen. It's not going to be easy though, even with that strong first end, because as you can see on your screens, he's not the only rider going very fast through the first half of the lap. Arbolino also improving, so too is Ortola. So even the likes of Via and Sasaki on 35.0s and Ramirez, they're going to have to improve upon that if they're going to get themselves into qualifying 2. We're following Ortola now, who's third rider in this queue. And right at the back of the picture goes Darren Binder. He's down coming through turn 13. He won't be improving on 8th place.
Yeah, huge crash there for the South African. Thankfully, he went one way and the bike went another. Not caught up with the Grassini Calyx as it slid through the gravel, and he was back on his feet immediately. But needless to say, that's his session over with. Canet comes across the line and goes fastest momentarily because Arbolino jumps up with 34.5. That is very close to lap record pace. In fact,
better than
it is a lap record pace. It's a new outright circuit record for Moto2 for Tony Arbolino. Sensational stuff for the Italian.
Yeah, some will be asking, where has that come from Tony Arbolino? Well, he did, as mentioned, have technical problems yesterday afternoon, which kind of masked his potential. But a 34.5 puts him 2/10 clear of Canet, who's in turn a 10th clear of Ortola. Look for the back of the picture, and you'll see a Grassini Calyx arriving upside down as Binder loses the front through turn 13. Of course, he has had his injury issues over his Moto2 career. Fortunately, the good news we can take out of that crash is that Binder hasn't hurt himself in that one.
Yeah, rumors continue to persist that he could be on his way to British Superbikes next year, which would be a real boon for that championship, you feel. Joe Roberts is in the mix as he guns it out off Tremonto, turn 10 into Carboni. And Roberts has got a lovely riding style. Completely at one with the bike there, but will it be fast enough to challenge the leading names? Yumi Sasaki currently making a play to get up with the likes of Canet and Arbolino. Roberts has lost a big amount of time there through sector number 3. Looks smooth, but wasn't necessarily the quickest run with those fast rights at the end of the back straight.
And a weak third sector might cost Sasaki. Estimation is that he will go into third place with Bob Colin Via out. Let's follow the 71. Keep up his good recent qualifying form. And across the line he goes, and he does indeed go into third place. Just 16 thousandths behind Canet. Just to underline that.
And the uncomfortable minute and a half coming up for him.
Here's Munoz then on the 17 bike. As we were discussing earlier in the weekend, not even a podium finish in Barcelona has been able to secure him a crash helmet full of sponsors, but I'm sure that will come in the future. Good lap that from Munoz. He goes into third, just 5 thousandths behind Aaron Canet, who's second place. Is living a bit of a charmed life, but he is still hanging on to a place in qualifying 2. Via's third sector might well be the difference between Q2 and Q1 for him. He goes into 6th place, just ahead of Navarro, who also sets a personal best. Still right in the back of the picture, goes into 11th place. We're inside the final minute now, and Aaron Canet looks like he's about to end any kind of debate about his Q2 place. He's going very quickly halfway around.
He is. Ivan Ortola, I think, was just outside the track limits there, coming down in towards turn 14, so it won't be a Q2 progression for the young rookie. Canet just up ahead of him. Been nice and clean here through turns 15 and 16. Comes across the finish line. Will he cement his place? Well, I think he's already done that, to be fair. Bit of a shake of the head, not too happy with how that last lap panned out, but I think he has done enough in a spot in Q2, which is the most important thing. It's the bottom line at the end of the day.
Remarkably crossed there, didn't he? Under his crash helmet there, you could just see that he was swearing or shouting to himself, but the job does look to be done, unless something highly dramatic happens here. Looking to try and achieve that is Alex Estreach, who comes into turn 14 now. Arbolino, really monstrous third sector, which has made a lot of the difference for him. Himself 2/10 clear of the field. You can see Via also losing so much time relative to Arbolino there. Via looks like he's going to miss the Q2 cut-off, unlike his substitute teammate.
He's fully committed there through turn number 15. Understandable that he's losing so much time. He had the massive crash there yesterday morning, so we forgive him for just trying to within his limits through those fast rights, and in the end it did cost him. Colin Vare not making it through to Q2, but still I think a decent recovery considering what has happened so far this weekend. Session is for Joe Roberts.
The whole American racing team, none of their 3 riders are going through here. Ramirez has already taken the checker flag in 8. Roberts won't be too further up the grid, even if he is higher up the grid than that. Let's follow him across the line. 11th, he's already shaking his head before he even crosses the line. And I think saying some choice American swear words to his bike there as he comes towards turn 1. 11th for him, that's 25th on the grid. In other words, Surrey, of course, wild carding on a 3rd American racing team machine, 12th. No representation for that team in Q2.
Real disappointment from Roberts. Qualified 2nd for the last Grand Prix that we had here. Emilia-Romagna race. Start of October last year. As Lewis said, 25th this time around. A real disaster for him, as Tony Arbolino just gets a little bit of last-minute advice from Fabio Quartararo to perform some heroics himself earlier today without giving away anything more. Good to see the pearls are still very much on Quartararo as he debriefs with his Italian buddy.
He could pull that off a lot better than we could. We were in the commentary box. There's Aaron Canet, who's already got rid of the bleached blonde locks and has now gone for the mean shaven-headed approach. Many thousandths of a second confined. He's got the lean, mean look this afternoon. Still very much in the mix here. Wasn't exactly looking comfortable, even right the way down to the wire in that session for Canet. But he does go through the Q2. In the end, the margin for Canet to Q1, the riders who don't advance from it, was just over a tenth of a second, just to underline how close Moto2 is. Canet, Munoz and Sasaki all on 1:34.7s, or Tola on a 34.8 and Via a 34.9. Here's Danny Munoz. Debriefs at the end of the session there, he will be rightly pleased with. He makes his way through to qualifying 2. And the appearances we have seen from Munoz so far this season, that's now the 4th time. 4th in the last 5 now for Munoz that he's been in Q2. As Tony Arbolino continues to receive plenty of words of wisdom. It's Fonzi Nieto just over to the right. Fabio Quartararo departs the scene to get ready for the Tissot sprint in just over an hour. Arbolino quickest then in Q1. Aaron Canet, Danny Munoz and Imu Sasaki also move through. Ortola just the wrong side of the cut-off pointed bit from Via Navarro, Ramirez, Aggi and Discreet. Joe Roberts 11th, 25th on the grid. It's his worst qualifying since the season opener in Buriram. Sura just behind him in 12th, from Binder, who we saw crash at turn 13. Ferrandez, the wildcard 14, ahead of Oradre and Yuki Kuni. So the all-time lap record broken in qualifying 1. Tony Arbolino is your new lap record holder in Misano. Can he convert that into a pole position challenge in Q2? We will find out next. Good afternoon, everybody. We are within an hour now. The countdown is on to the San Marino sprint, where Marc Marquez knows that if he scores 3 or more points over 13 laps, he will guarantee himself a match point for the World Championship in Japan in 2 weeks. It's potentially one of the final steps on his road to completing one of sport's greatest comebacks. Can he extend his extraordinary sprint record later on today? Their great was set earlier on this morning. The 3 have also played out what was a fiercely contested qualifying session in the lightweight class. It's Moto2 next. Will we potentially be adding to our list of pole sitters this season? We've had 6 of them so far this season. As you look at your qualifying 2 lineup, which is headlined by Celestino Vietti, let's hear from his team boss, who has some good news to share with us from last weekend, of course, with Celestino Vietti and Luca Lanetta confirmed as their lineup for 2026. And Vietti, the fastest rider in practice so far here at Misano. Luca Boscascoro is speaking to Elliot.
He certainly is. Luca, a great time to speak to you ahead of qualifying. Celestino on home turf looks pretty good this weekend. How is he feeling and how are the team feeling in general here in Misano?
The feeling is good because coming also from the race, the well is competitive all time, and here okay is the track house track, and surely one plus more also with the family, the push to everybody. But in the final I'm really happy because this morning the top 4 bike is for Boscascuro, and that is the signal they work in correct direction. but what is important is tomorrow the race.
Have you made any changes to the package, or is it just fine-tuning some things and the riders getting more comfortable?
Yes, working a lot, but in the final a lot of setting, because the problem is this year I understand really bad the new tire, because the rear tire is very little performance, high performance, the front is not fantastic, and for my bike they have a lot of grip in the back, making the cry the front.
And just last week we learned your 2026 lineup, Celestino staying, and you've got Luca Lunetta joining you. Very exciting, of course. Talk us through the appointment of Luca. Why have you picked him? And of course, I mean, understandable that Cele stays, but talk about your team for next year.
Because I think the Lunetta have the potential, they coming the good rider. Also, I believe a lot in VAT, because in the final I need one rider fast in the team, and the other wait step by step arriving. But this year is unbelievable. I think it's about the tires. Then many rookies really faster, and I hope also Lunetta next year in the middle season in the top.
Excited to see that. Luca, good luck for qualifying in the race tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks very much to Luca Boscoscuro. Thank you very much as well to Elliot York for that interview. Interesting stuff, and Luca was absolutely right. His bikes were first, second, third and fourth in FP2 earlier this morning, in a very good place, and it is one rider in particular that has really stood out above anyone else in Moto2 this weekend, and he's on your screens right now.
Celestino Vietti, fastest on Friday afternoon and fastest of all this morning. So I was getting ready to start the broadcast by telling you that Celestino Vietti is the all-time lap record holder around this Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli. Well, that is no longer the case after what we saw in qualifying one, although Luca, who you saw there on screen, will be pleased that it is still a Boscoscuro bike that holds the lap record. It was this man in Q1, Tony Arbolino. And after an absolutely miserable Friday afternoon for him, could he be potentially about to turn his weekend around to some tune after his pace in Q1.
He was a podium finisher at this track last year, albeit on a Mark VDS Calex, but he has set a new circuit record for Moto2 already this afternoon. Should he repeat that, he'll aim with a great shot. Actually be on the front row. It's been a really solid weekend so far. Dick Dixon, the Mark VDS squad. Dixon hasn't been outside the top four in any of the three previous Moto2 sessions so far. But here on the back, really strong ride, strong weekend in fact, in Barcelona. Qualified second, finished second. And Dixon said yesterday that the two small changes to his riding would help him today. He'll certainly be in the mix for the front row as well. He was just 0.06 off Celestino Vietti's fastest time this morning, which at the time was a new lap record. So Dixon, I think, is another name to keep in mind for the pole position hunt.
Yeah, the Boscoscuro's going well here this weekend. As Luca Boscoscuro mentioned, top four this morning were all on Boscoscuro bikes, led by Celestino Vietti. Tony Arbolino was also strong this morning. The likes of Jake Dixon. So Lopez, another rider who, of course, is former around this place. Winner of this Grand Prix in 2022, who's showing some signs of a return to form once again. We're on board now Diogo Moreira, who Manu Gonzalez started this season as the qualifying king. It's almost switched over to Diogo Moreira now, whereas Gonzalez has taken just that solitary pole at Austria since Le Mans, so we're talking the last 10 Grand Prix or so. Just the one pole position for Manu Gonzalez, and of course he never started from that pole after he picked up a grid penalty. Contrast, Diogo Moreira has had 4 pole positions in the last 8 Grand Prix, dating back to that pole position at Aragon, which he so nearly converted into victory, denied by mere thousandths on the final lap by Dennis Unchu. So difficult to call this qualifying session. Vietti will start for many as the favourite. There are so many other riders who've displayed and demonstrated potential podium and front row pace through this weekend. A 1:34.5, as we saw earlier on in qualifying one. We're expecting lap times once again well into the mid-34s in this Q2 session.
Yeah, not particularly looking at David Alonso as a possible four-sitter in this session, although his teammate Danny Holgado, the victor last time out in Barcelona, has been very fast this weekend as well, both over race trim and also over a single flying lap. Holgado was really strong inside the top 3 at the end of Friday. So watch out for the number 27, just a couple of bikes back of Jake Dixon here as he comes out of turn number 6. This is Diogo Moreira, who a bit like Canet really needs to do something this weekend to regain some ground. Gonzalez, after a very underwhelming Sunday in Barcelona, had looked pretty good for him at certain points, and he was going into Sunday thinking I could potentially challenge up towards the front, but that never really materialized as the rear tire dropped dramatically for him. 14th place was not one to cut it, and he's chasing big ground in the championship fight. Moreira needs a response here, starting in this session.
Well, the Marvidies Boscoscuro duo once again working in tandem, as we see so often from that particular squad. So good to see Philippe Salac here, given the way his Catalan Grand Prix ended last weekend. He's second in this train, a train which has David Alonso at the back of it, and he's also going pretty well. As you saw there on your screens, matching Dixon partway through the lap, which is now one corner away from being completed. So are we straight into the 34s in this session as Dixon now makes his way towards the line? We are in the 34s. It's Alonso though, fastest of all of that trader, 34.692 for him. David Alonso, not a qualifying specialist, on the evidence of Friday morning, not necessarily a Misano specialist, but as always, he gets stronger and stronger the longer the weekend goes on. Alonso, on at the moment, a surprise early pole.
Yeah, just as I said, don't expect him to be fighting for the pole position. He goes and puts it on provisional pole, which shows you exactly what I know. Now, we are speaking about the rider that won 2 of his past 3 Moto3 races at this venue. As we see Diogo Moreira now overtaking Alonso at the top, and that is another new Moto2 lap record at this Misano World Circuit at 34.467, a new benchmark set by the Brazilian.
So Moreira, Alonso, Lopez, currently your front row of the grid. Let's go back a long way for the last time Alonso Lopez was on the front row. Philip Iden last year, the last time we saw the 21 that high up the grid. But Moreira, at what is a home Grand Prix, of course, for his Italtrans team, looking to make something of a statement here and try and close back down the points advantage that Gonzalez opened up in Barcelona a week ago. Here is the World Championship leader, who's currently in 8th, but that might not last for too much longer.
Decent second sector for Marino Gonzalez. Let's see what he can do in the third. He has managed to maintain that advantage of Moreira. This looks like a certain spot on the front row if Gonzalez can get this final sector right. Good start to the session from Barry Baltus as well. When we come on to his performance in FP2 earlier, but Baltus is definitely a rider with podium potential this weekend, and he comes across, doesn't manage to improve, and Danny Holgado now jumps up into second, should I say third, because Gonzalez takes over in the middle of the provisional front row.
A watch for Tony Arbolino, who wants his lap record back. Across the line he comes, he's taken it. A 1:34.420. He's up behind Celestino Vietti, who might well be the best rider to follow around this Misano World Circuit. And Tony Arbolino, whose last Moto2 pole position came right here a year ago, is on course for back-to-back Misano poles.
Yeah, Diogo Moreira made a real mess of that final turn just there. You can see he lost a whole host of time, around half a second in total. So Moreira was on course there to maybe retake that top spot. That will have to wait for the second run of this session. So the lap record has been absolutely smashed today by some 0.2 of a second. In fact, even more when we compare it to what Celestino Vietti did yesterday. And impressive stuff from Tony Arbolino. I did not see this coming, I have to say.
Right, I'm right with you on that one. Aaron Canet then 17th, although I would assume he's again on some slightly warm rubber at the start of this session, having come through Q1, although there may be other reasons for that. Are we about to see one? Yes, we are, as he was altered up out of the seat of his Fantic Palax coming through Quercia. And I guess the good news for Canet is at the moment his 2 chief championship rivals aren't on pole position, but the next best thing, second and third at the moment for Moreira and Gonzalez. Holgado 4th from Aegis and Cavara, so both of the Blue Crew Pramat Boscoscuros are on the front 2 rows at the moment. Then it's Alonso 7th, and Celestino Vietti, I guess, a somewhat surprising 8th right now.
Yeah, as we were saying, Vietti has been the star of this weekend up until this session. Fastest both yesterday afternoon and this morning as well. And he has had at least a 10th in hand through everyone in the third sector of this circuit, which goes through Curvoni and the next 2 fast right-handers all weekend long. So there definitely is more to come from Celli. as he looks on from the Speed RS box. By no means a disaster is 8th position, but considering what we've seen from him so far, that would be a real disappointment for the number 13. Should he qualify there?
Just then being asked of him was, would you like any changes to the bike? And a quick shake of the head to say no. And Celestino Vietti can potentially just ride within himself a little bit on that first run. The Speed RS Boscoscuro is currently 8th and 9th. And Morgado, who you saw there, 4th. Yeah, this would be a real turn-up for the books for Tony Arbolino, who has been on the front row of the grid already this season. Back at the Saxon ring, albeit a rain-affected qualifying session. But to correct myself slightly, of course, it wouldn't be back-to-back Misano poles, because we did have an Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix here last year, but it would be back-to-back poles at the San Marino Grand Prix for Tiger Tony, who very nearly won that second Misano encounter last year, of course, didn't he, before he ran wide at turn 14, 3 corners away from victory.
That's his lone pole position in this class as well, isn't it? So Arbolino mentioned that 3rd place in the Saxon ring in the rain. His next best qualifying was a 7th in Kota, which was somewhat weather affected as well. After that, you're looking at the best qualifying performance of 10th. So that underlines that Saturday really not been Arbolino's for me in 2025. Yet here he is, that record in the books, and potentially staring down the barrel of a 2nd career pole.
So a few underperformers early on in this qualifying session. Canet, you'd say one of them, although we saw perhaps the reason why with that moment through Quercia. Dixon only 11th at the moment on the Marvin Yes Boscoscuro. We expect him to have podium pace tomorrow. Won't be an awful lot of use from the little off-road 4. Baltus 1 place ahead of him in 10th. Of course, Vietti, as we've already covered, 8th. Tony Arbolino 6 minutes away from 2nd career Moto2 pole position. Perhaps this man on screen is his greatest threat, Diogo Moreira. It's clear to see where Moreira was winning and losing his time. Super strong in the first sector, but through the Cavone section of the fast right, Arbolino making a serious dent into Diogo's pole position hopes.
Looks as though Arbolino was absolutely nailed on through sector number 3. We saw that in Q1 as well. He was so strong through those fast rights, and he certainly isn't lacking confidence here at his home track. So we're on board with the championship leader, Manny Gonzalez. Certainly not been a weekend where he's been standing head and shoulders above the rest, but certainly in contention is Gonzalez. Someone like Tony Arbolino or even Celestino Vietti are faster than him in this session, and even tomorrow. You have to think that it's that point of the season where Gonzalez is going to be managing a bit the gap towards Canet and Moreira in the championship final.
Celestino Vietti getting the instructions that he's been followed by Manu Gonzalez. That certainly wasn't the rider immediately behind him, because it was an Aspar machine that we saw right behind him. It was Daniel Holgado. There's Gonzalez, who's 4 bikes further back, who's given himself a little bit of space now ahead of his qualifying lap. Gonzalez following is not really his style, is it, in a Moto2 qualifying session? He's certainly one who likes to do his own thing on his own part of the racetrack. He's got his teammates and Aegis just up behind him, and the other Blue Crew Boscoscuro of Ethan Cavara. He's currently on target for 6th place on the grid, which would compare quite favourably with his qualifying results so far this season. That would be a best qualifying of 2025 for Ethan.
That was just a little bit of a moment there for Vietti coming out of turn number 10. Getting in the way of Tony Arbolino. As a result of that, Arbolino maybe not best pleased, but it wasn't as if Vietti had that moment intentionally. So safe to say, still yet to see the best of Vietti's number 13 Boscoscuro frame.
That was all of the first runs, because as you saw, just probably showed you that replay, Arbolino was just leaving the pit lane. Well, our timing screen is now starting to light up with quite a lot of red on it. Best first sectors for Vietti, for Gonzalez, for Holgado, for Canet, for Aegis, and for Jake Dixon. Dixon, the fastest of them through the first sector, as Danny Munoz, while he's out there busy concentrating on qualifying, has had some very good news to share with us. He has officially confirmed that Italtrans for 2026. His current situation is a place on row 5. He's just set a 1:35.2 on his last lap, which is around 3:10 slower than he's been so far in this session.
Go on board with Aaron Canet, still 18th in this session. And Canet is right within range as well. He's got a good couple of markers up ahead of him. The only problem is there's a handful of other names that look like they're on even faster times. So Canet on course to jump up inside the top 6 here, but maybe it won't be good enough considering what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, it's Dixon versus Gonzalez versus Holgado, I think, on these laps, as they all lose time to Arbolino through the 3rd sector. But it looks like Arbolino, when he starts his next time lap, might be back in 4th place. Yellow flags are out in the 2nd sector, so these laps could be very, very important. Holgado goes on to provisional pole position. Gonzalez misses out. He does a 34.3 to take 2nd place. Canet is now onto the front row of the grid, turning his weekend on its head. What about Jake Dixon, who's back in the lower reaches of the field? He climbs up to 7th. He's only 0.2 of a second off the pace, but that's P7, and all of a sudden it's Danny Holgado staring at back-to-back pole positions.
Oh, it's Otto van der Gerberg who had a big crash down at turn number 8. So that is an early end for the Dutchman. You can see he has tucked the front mid-turn there. Sonta will be finishing 15th in this session at best, and wonder whether those yellow flags have been taken in. They have, which means that Manu Gonzalez can get on with the job of trying to retake pole position off Danny Holgado. I think that was Holgado that was just running off track up ahead of him. Let's see what Gonzalez can do here. He is, well, you can see this could we see a 1:33, which would be an absolutely absurd lap time for Moto2 around this Misano World Circuit.
In amongst all the mayhem, Vietti's gone up into 5th place, and he's also on target to move himself up the order. Look at Sasaki's 2nd sector. I think he's behind Vietti on the racetrack. He's picked the right rider to follow. Is right on board with Manu Gonzalez. Plenty can still change yet in this session. We've got a Reynas also on 0-4 best 1st and 2nd sectors. This is going to be so close and so competitive. 2 more corners to go for Manu Gonzalez, who, remind you, hadn't started from a pole position in Moto2 since the French Grand Prix. Took pole in Austria but didn't start from it, and he won't be taking pole on that lap either, having gone wide out of the final corner. He does improve in time, might be all the material given he went wide. He stays in 2nd place. We wait for Arenas now to come across the line. Here he is. Where does he transform his session from? 14th, he climbs up 2 rows up to 8th.
Decent time then from Albert Arenas. It is an incredible red hot pace here in this session. You've obliterated the previous lap record from yesterday by 0.4 of a second. The likes of Jake Dixon or Albert Arenas must be looking at their lap times thinking, I'm 0.2 quicker than the fastest ever time that was set here one day ago. Yeah, I'm only down on the provisional 3rd row of the grid.
Well, even Tony Arbolino's lap record that he's set in Q1, 10 riders have beaten that in this 4.2 session. One's gone down big time somewhere around the racetrack. It's not Chelsea Vietti who we're looking at. It's not Manu Gonzalez either. It's Jake Dixon who's gone down. Dixon was in the 2nd sector of his lap. He's gone down coming through turn 6. So Dixon's qualifying hopes are over. Chelsea Vietti, though, crucially, is ahead of that on the racetrack.
Crucial for this time, and Vietti has been losing a little bit of time through sector number 3. In this qualifying session, which has been somewhat surprising. He was so strong there yesterday. Let's see what he can do. Good to see Dixon is up and walking. He's okay, and Vietti could well steal that pole position here from Danny Holgado, looking for his 1st pole position of this season.
So who else is going quickly? Baltus also with a good 2nd sector. Don't rule out Diogo Moreira either. He's also on a very strong lap. Vietti, though, will take the checkered flag first. And is he about to spoil Aspar's day? Vietti for the Fantic team, but watch Diogo Moreira. Here comes the number 10. He's just behind his teammate. It's only the 2nd row for Diogo Moreira. He takes 6th, so it is a 2nd consecutive pole position. Just when you think his reputation cannot get even better, Danny Holgado has done it again.
As indeed, brilliant stuff from the rookies. In some respects, it is all about the rookies in 2025 in this Moto2 campaign. There is Danny Holgado celebrating another pole position, just 6 days on from his 1st ever victory in the intermediate category. He's backed it up with yet another pole position. Sensational stuff from the young Spaniard. Yet again, he'll be going into a race really thinking that he can be fighting right at the front, maybe even for victory.
It's a really exciting front 2 rows of the grid, isn't it? Holgado, Vietti, Gonzalez, the front row of the grid. Baltus, Canet, Moreira, your 2nd row. So we do have all 3 of the championship front runners towards the front. And if you consider the top 5 in the World Championship title contenders, they're all in the front 3 rows. with Agius, Arbolino, Dixon, your third row of the grid. We've been speaking a lot through the weekend of the maturity with which Danny Holgado has approached his rookie season in Moto2. Long gone are the days where we were surprised to see Holgado at the sharp end, especially given the way he totally dominated the Catalan Grand Prix last weekend. He might not have it quite so easy tomorrow, though, with Vietti and Gonzalez right next to him on the front row of the grid. I don't think there's anything that leads to think that Holgado can't stick around there and fight at the front tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree with that. He had a very promising run in free practice 2, little mini race simulation. He was pretty strong in that, although didn't quite come onto it. Barry Baltus was actually probably the most impressive of the lot. So Baltus has put himself in a really good spot in 4th. I think he's another certified podium contender tomorrow. Good stuff again from Manny Gonzalez. Didn't quite manage to make it onto pole, but another front row start. Many front row starts. How many is that he's had this year? 11 this season.
Manny Gonzalez. This is the Dixon crash then. It's going to be through the left of 6 that's coming up now. As he tips it in left, the front end goes very early there for the Boscoscuro. Around about 115 kilometers an hour through there. Let's head down quickly to pit lane and get some reaction. Paul Espargaro is speaking to El.
Yeah, Paul, super quick. You're a big fan of Danny's. Worked closely with him. What's his step forward spin and how proud are you?
Yeah, so proud. He's doing a super great job. I'm just proud and really impressed of what he's doing. It's amazing. He's putting a lot of hard work and it's amazing. The first year to do this kind of result is just insane.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. Danny Holgado and Paul Espargaro very, very close. Danny Holgado is getting closer and closer to the top of Moto2. Climbed 4 places in the World Championship last weekend with his victory in Barcelona. Now up into 7th in the World Championship. Just how high might he get in the remainder of 2025? Superb pole position. It was so close, wasn't it, in that qualifying session? Less than a quarter of a second covered the top 10 down to Albert Arenas. All of them under the lap record when that session began.
Yeah, incredible speed. As I previously said, previous lap record absolutely obliterated in that session by 0.4 of a second. On such a tight and short track, that really is saying something. My favorite thing from Danny Holgado after his victory in Barcelona was just when I asked him, did David Alonso's victory the previous race in Hungary have any influence on your performance this weekend? And he just said, yeah. So he's been using the strength of his teammate as a positive to use as motivation to fire him up and inspire him to even faster and better performances. I've certainly seen that in the weeks since. We'll be looking at the 2 riders at the front of tomorrow's race. Holgado will be a player there. I think Vietti we have to take as a certainty up at the front. With the likes of Gonzalez, Baltus. Canet is something of a dark horse. We're not exactly sure what he can do over a longer race distance. And Marino, we have all the championship big hitters up there inside the top 6. Exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, there's a mixture of motivations, aren't there, in that leading couple of rows. 3 riders there who certainly do have thoughts of the World Championship. Maybe potentially 4 if you consider Barry Baltus 4th in the World Championship, still very much a contender. But certainly Holgado and Vietti, they could just go all out for victory tomorrow. They don't have to give any thought to potentially securing points and taking a cautious approach. But we're getting set now to hear from our pole sitter. Just receiving some further congratulations there as he gets ready to take his position to speak to our own Elliot. Let's hear from him now. Back-to-back pole positions then for Danny Holgado. He's giving his reaction to Elliot.
Danny, 2 poles in 2 weekends, looking super strong once again, feeling confident. How are you feeling for tomorrow's race, and talk us through that lap time as well?
Yes, very happy with my second pole position in Moto2. This was a little bit difficult for me because it was very close with the other riders, but very happy with the performance because this morning I did a good pace in the race simulation. I think I have a good pace to fight for a good result tomorrow in the race. Nothing. I need to enjoy the race tomorrow with my team, with my father, and let's go.
Congrats, good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
And we most certainly will. Danny, think many people have said Barry Baltus has been the revelation of Moto2 in 2025. I wouldn't disagree with that, but I think Danny Holgado as well. Not many would have expected him to have been at this stage of the season with a victory already under his belt and with 2 pole positions in a row to his name as well. Sensational stuff from the 27.
So tomorrow's 22 lap San Marino Grand Prix. It's all the ingredients to find itself amongst some of the classics we've already seen in Moto2 this season. British Grand Prix, where we had 4 fighting for victory on the very last lap. Aragon, where we had a photo finish over the finish line. Hungary, where we had 3 going for just 1 victory on the final lap. So many potential contenders for victory here tomorrow. It's Danny Holgado who takes pole position for the 2nd Saturday in a row. Celestino Vietti takes 2nd, ahead of Manuel Gonzalez. Front row start number 11 of the season for him. Baltus Fantic 4th and 5th from Diogo Moreira 6th. Stella Regis, Tony Arbolino and Jake Dixon on row 3. Arenas, Alonso and Sasaki is your 4th row from Ivan Guevara, Alonso Lopez and Adrian Huertas, who's confirmed for next year at Inter Trans. Lots van der Goorberg after his crash at Quetch, 16th. Danny Munoz and Philip Salat completing your 18 from Q2. Ortola next up from Bayern, Navarro, Ramirez, Achi and Discourage. Joe Roberts, 25th, his worst qualifying since Buriram, Alberto Sura and Darren Binder, who crashed in Q1, who will be just behind him. Ferrandez, Oradre and Cooney completing your grid of 30 for the Moto2 battle tomorrow. So 2 poles in 2 for Danny Holgado, whose star continues to be on the ascendancy. In around about a minute's time, we'll begin our build-up to the Tissot Sprint in MotoGP. 13 laps coming right up.
Saturday 16 is set to take San Marino by storm with the race of MotoGP glory comes to Misano World Circuit. Marco Simoncelli, where tranquil countryside meets packed beaches and restaurants on Italy's Adriatic coast. Misano lies 120 kilometres south of Ducati's HQ, with the Bologna brand looking to clinch a 30th sprint success in a row. It's time for MotoGP. So the first Grand Prix here in Misano took place all the way back in 1980. We came back here in 2007 after a 14-year break on a track running in the opposite direction to previous formats. 4.226 kilometres, 2.626 miles in length. 16 corners, 10 right, 6 to the left. A busy first sector that weaves its way through to turn 6. High-speed turn led, one of the fastest corners on the entire Grand Prix calendar. The MotoGP bikes powering through there at just under 300 kilometers an hour. 4 hard-braking spots around this Misano circuit, and overtaking hotspots are plenty. This was last year. What an epic fight this was in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. It all came down to turn 4, and now Bastianini on the inside of Roy Martin. So 6 short days ago now, the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, for the first time since Argentina 2023, Alex Marquez found himself starting from pole position. There was a great battle further back for the final place on the podium, and what a move this was. A contender for overtaker of the season as Enea Bastianini passed through on fellow KTM rider Pedro Acosta. Ultimately, the beast was to take his first Sunday top 3 on board at KTM. At the front, though, it was Alex versus Mark for much of the Barcelona battle. And for the first time in 6 Marquez 1-2s in Grand Prix, it was Alex that took the spoils. What a victory, what a confidence boost for the Gresini racing rider as he took his first victory since the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez. He certainly enjoyed life on Spanish shores so far this season. Has Alex, but the Marquez brothers coming into our upcoming 13-lap sprint here at the Misano World Circuit. Marco Simoncelli have a little bit of work to do, in particular our runaway World Championship leader Mark.